Good morning, this is Angela with Permaculture. It's thawing out in Portland, Oregon, little by little. I kind of had a little bit of not a rant exactly, but venting some frustration at a friend this morning, and probably should have asked her if she was interested in hearing my rant in the first place, get her consent before I kind of unloaded. So I will make sure that I have y'all's consent if you don't want to hear me express frustrations about modern American life and the way our society is structured. This might not be the video for you. I will frame that all in the context of permaculture, of course. I'm gonna walk around and just check out how things are doing in the garden, and I'll chat with y'all about some of my thoughts about social permaculture and how we use permaculture design in our society, and how our society is not currently set up for resilience. And because I value being solution-minded, I want to look for solutions, but I don't really know what those are. So maybe y'all can help me a little bit. I'm gonna start walking through the garden and just to chit-chat a little bit with y'all. So I've been thinking about how permaculture design really impacts the resiliency of communities. And the lack of it is such a detriment to our society. So I've been watching friends posting on social media because, 300,000 people in my city are without power, and I somehow miraculously am in a little pocket where we have electricity when folks 4 doors down do not. And some folks are expected to not have power for a full week. And I've been watching people post on social media. I'm noticing my neighbor's hawthorn has quite a few broken branches in it. Lots and lots of damaged trees in Portland because of the ice that fell on, 8 or 12 inches of snow. Lots of damaged trees and lots of power outages. And again, extensive delays in restoring power. So I'm watching friends post, and they're expressing their rightful frustration that it sucks to not have power for, 12 hours or 15 hours or, 3 days or oh, goodness, a week. I don't want to in any way minimize that experience, because goodness, it sucks to not have power. It is terrible to be ill-equipped to deal with adversity. And I watched this a lot during the forest fires that we had and the terrible toxic air quality last year, where you're stuck indoors. And also, let's be real, we're in a pandemic. So it's not just this isolated snowstorm. It is the reality that we've all been living for almost a year now of what do you do when you are faced with adversity and your society is not set up for it. And it just really frustrates me, because I see that American Western society is designed for consumerism. It's designed for instant gratification. It's designed to fill your immediate wants, right? But not to look into your needs, and not to encourage not even self-sufficiency, but not to encourage resiliency, not to encourage a lifestyle or a way of setting up and designing your life, not even a lifestyle, but a way of setting up your life and your community that can deal with adverse situations. And I'm sorry, I'm distracted by my roses are waking up and growing despite the cold weather. So that's not a condemnation of individuals. Just like when you have to participate in a capitalist society and you can't, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. You can't get everything perfect as an individual. because you are immersed in a system that is stacked against you, where it's impossible to do everything perfectly in line with your ethics. We're dealing with that here again in this snow situation where the city is shut down. People are without basic necessities because they have been a product of, or immersed in, or dependent on a system that doesn't set itself up to deal with adverse events. We aren't prepared for heating our own homes if the grid goes out. We aren't prepared to feed ourselves for more than a short period of time without trips to the store. So when a friend posts on social media that they have, like enough firewood for 2 days and then they're out, or they post that they don't have enough food to get through more than 3 days without going to the grocery, what do they do when they're iced in? It can be really easy for us to judge those folks and want to condemn them, particularly if we've set ourselves up individually for a little bit more of a resilient situation where we can cope better with periods of adversity. But goodness, I couldn't go a month. I don't know that I could go, a month without depending on the greater community. And a lot of folks in a society that is fast-paced, where when we were children and you ordered something out of a catalog, you had to wait 6 to 8 weeks to get it. Now you click on Amazon and you've got it in 48 hours. We have sped up the pace of our society so that we only see as far ahead as the next Amazon delivery, as the next trip to the grocery store. We only plan ahead for a week or 2 days. And that's to the detriment of each of us as individuals, but it's not the fault of each of us as individuals. That's the fault of the driving forces of our society, and how American culture is built around consumption, is built around profit, is built around hyper productivity and a super fast pace. And it is not built around periods of dormancy and inactivity, and periods of hunkering down, and periods of hibernation, and periods of stagnation, right? We aren't prepared to deal with the halting of the grinding of the wheels of our society for any period of time, because that's not how society is designed. So if we want to buck the trend, it's actually really difficult to do, particularly if you live in an urban area. This is where I get to the point where permaculture design is the solution. But how do we do it? How do we design an entire society for resilience? Oh, there's a lot of dark-eyed juncos flying over. How do we design an entire society for resilience? I get that, permaculture knows how to do it functionally. We know how to create design systems that are resilient, where people don't suffer, where we have community interdependence, where we have structures and channels and supply chains and preparation that there's so many dark-eyed juncos down in the chickens, where we have these in the chicken run, where we have these supply chains that can handle crises, can handle the reality that we live in a world with weather and hazards and catastrophes. The frustration and problem that I'm having is, how do we implement it? We can do the design, but how do we overcome the system that is greedy and hungry and feeds off of profit and feeds off of extracting the most it can out of the individuals and the environment? How do we counter that system? How do we, without sounding evangelical in my fervor here, how do we preach the gospel of resilient design and get whole societies to embrace it? Because as I've said before, it can be easy for us as individuals to make small changes on our property, but that doesn't mean that those changes happen in isolation, right? We still are in the context of a community, of a society. And until we design the entire society for resilience, there are weaknesses in our system, right? There are imbalances in our system. There are ways that we are not going to have real resilience and abundance like we would like to, like we envision. So that's my question. That's my thought process right now. How do we actually implement real change? I understand permaculture strives for slow, small solutions, and I understand that changes are not going to happen rapidly. But how do we move forward in that direction and overcome the problems of living in an extractive society when that is so tempting and the gratification is so immediate? Although now we're seeing the consequences of living in an immediate gratification society when Mother Nature doesn't work that way. So if you have thoughts on like how do we practically get permaculture to work? How do we make big or small but steady incremental changes to build toward a resilient society so that that society is benefiting us as individuals, is helping all of us live more abundantly and helping all of us weather storms better, right? If you have thoughts on that, I would love to hear it. I'm just really frustrated at watching friends stuck without power, friends unable to weather the storm very well, and it's not their fault. It's the fault of the way our society is ordered, and I would love to see that change. So that's my rant. I'm going to go back in the house because even though it's thawing out, it is, you can see this is my rain melt bucket to collect fresh water for the chickens and ducks. It's thawing out, but it's still chilly, and I'm going to go in and do some baking. I hope everybody is staying safe and warm. I hope folks get their power turned back on soon, and I hope we can find real, practical ways to make changes toward resiliency. I hope we start to open our eyes and ears and our hearts to be receptive to those changes, and we start the work of making a regenerative society so we can have a regenerative planet. Be safe, everybody.